time for another power-packed episode of Evolve Sales Live. Welcome back. I'm your host, Jonathan Fisher. Are you looking for an edge? What if you or your team became experts at turning cold calls into first calls, removing people's fear of making commitments in an uncertain economy, changing the way people think about sales relationships, selling the idea, not just the product, getting all of the business closed, not just one transaction? Would these skills make a difference in your results? They're all directly connected to the language of sales, and you're about to learn about these and other powerful techniques from today's guest, Mr. Jim Cathcart. Jim is one of the world's leading professional speakers and the author of multiple best-selling books. His TEDx talk has garnered over 2.5 million views. He has presented over 3,300 speeches in every U.S. state and around the world. Jim is one of only 5 speakers in the world who holds all of the following honors. He's past president of the National Speakers Association, recipient of the Cavett Award, member of the Speakers Hall of Fame, a certified speaking professional, a 29-year member of the exclusive Speakers Roundtable, and he's received the Golden Gavel Award from Toastmasters International. Just this year, he was chosen as number 7 of the top 30 global sales gurus and number 19 of the top motivational speakers. He's been inducted into the International Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame and is here to drop some golden nuggets on you and me. Jim Cathcart, what a joy and an honor to have you with us today.
Well, I tell you what, after that intro, I can't wait to hear what I've got to say. This must be good. Thank you, John.
I love that.
I appreciate it.
Real pleasure. Well, we're here to talk about the language of sales and really out of some content that you've put together that's just top shelf, all about relationship selling. You were kind of the original author of a book by that title. It's been a bestseller.
There you go.
A lot.
The
there
guy
it is.
right there.
Yeah, love it. A lot of people talk about relationship selling, but I don't think everyone has the same definition of even what that means. I wonder if you could start us off with that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important distinction. Let's talk about language for just a second to put this in context. Language is what we use to communicate, to affect the world, right? And our choice of words, if it's the right words, gets the intended results. If it's close to right, it could get very wrong results just by a small error in the selection of words. The words you use to describe someone could be the most generous and wonderful words in the world. I could say, oh, gosh, you're so organized and so precise. And, man, I know I can rely on what you say because you've got it all together. Or I could say, man, you're anal about this. You're a geek. But wow, do you have any flexibility? I'm talking about the same thing, but it's coming across in a whole different way. So here's the thing. When we say words, when we choose and say words, we hear them too. In other words, our own mind, our own feelings are affected, even when we don't recognize it. So it's not just a sound that went out there like banging on something and creating sound waves. It's an intention that was expressed. And if we say, like when I was younger, a young adult, I was overweight, like 50 pounds overweight. And I remember when I would do something well and somebody would say, hey, good job, I would say, yep, not bad for a fat kid, huh? Wait a minute. Every time I said that, I was reinforcing my image of myself as being overweight. And I find there are lots of things like that, like saying can't when you mean don't see how. Or saying can't when you say don't yet have permission. I can't get in this store. Why? They don't open for another 3 minutes. Well, hello, that's not a problem. That's a delay. Right. And so the choice of words matters a lot. When I chose the words relationship selling, I got pushback. This was back in 1985. And people would say to me, Jim, a relationship is like man and woman love and, all that. And selling is business. So, combining those two just doesn't make sense. And by the way, you can't make sales that way. And I'd say, well, what do you think relationship selling is? Well, it's being nice to people. No, that's Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends. And no, this is selling, but it's done in a way that values the relationship as an asset. Well, what does that mean? It means it's not just about being nice to people, although that may be very important. It's about making the connection with the other person more valuable. So I started asking audiences. I've done, as you mentioned, 3,300 speeches, so I've had a lot of audiences. I started asking them, what's a relationship? And none of them came up with the same words. So I thought, okay, if there's not an instant universal answer to the question, what's a relationship, and everybody knows what one is, maybe I should write the definition. So I did. Here it is. A relationship is a direct connection between people in which value is exchanged. A direct connection between people, because you don't have relationships with things. You could say, I'm standing 6 feet in relationship to that wall. No, that's getting too technical. You don't have relationships with things. You have relationships with other beings. And value must be exchanged. Now, what's value? It could be money, could be goods, could be information, could be encouragement and support, could be love and affection, could be joy, just having fun, hanging together. It could be stimulation or inspiration. It could be I like that person because they ask me great questions. But value is being exchanged. No value exchange, if it's all one way, that's a short-lived relationship. It's not going to last long. And so it's got to be reciprocal, but it doesn't have to be equal. Like people say a relationship should be 50-50. No, 100-100.
Oh, I like that.
If you're not all in and I'm all in, this one's going to be toast down the road. Like, do you take this person to be your spouse until death do you part? Absolutely, rain or shine, sleet and snow, darkness of night. I'm there. I'm all in. Here, take it. This is me. And the other one says, yeah, I'll try. Oops.
Yeah, not going to work.
So
that
what is a relationship?
A lot,
yeah, direct connection in which value is exchanged. Okay. Now, relationship selling. What does that mean? Well, first off, if your name is Jonathan Fisher, Fisher's the main name. So you're a Fisher, and everything else is Fisher-ish when considering you. But of all the Fishers in the world, you're the Jonathan. So in other words, that's what makes you unique among those similar beings, right? Relationship selling, what's the last name? Selling. It's about selling. It's not about, love and holding hands. It's about selling, and it's of the selling concepts, the one that puts relationships up as an asset. Now, every relationship has stages or degrees. The earliest degree of relationship would be just simple acknowledgement of each other's presence. We're standing at a street corner, we look over and nod. That's it. Well, that's the beginning of a relationship, but there ain't much there. And I sure wouldn't invest in that one yet, right? But it progresses. How are you? Fine. How are you? Where are you headed? Oh, I'm going to the meeting at ABC. So am I. What are you doing there? I'm on the negotiation team. Well, so am I. Adversaries or same team? Same team. Hell of a deal. Come with me. Would you like a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, this thing's becoming really something. And the highest, I guess, level of relationship is I would die for you, right? So
right.
You've got between I see you, I see that you exist, and I would die for you. Those are the extremes. Well, every relationship can be managed intelligently and intentionally from those early stages toward those later stages. So if you look at your business that way, how many prospects do I have? What's the nature of the prospects? Are they qualified? Do I look forward to 10 years or longer with each one, or is this going to be my money's in your pocket? Please come closer.
Yeah, right.
Right. So that's the whole point of relationship selling.
Now, what kind of contrast would you draw between what you've just been saying? Because to my mind, that even speaks to how you would define sales itself. So how would you differentiate the approach you've just been describing and how an awful lot of folks still approach sales as just it's a transactional arrangement. It isn't, The relationship thing is ancillary, if it's even there. How would you contrast those two?
Well, first off, the purpose of selling is to cause people to own. In other words, selling is a helping act. And if you're not helping, you shouldn't be selling to that person. So selling is a commercial act of helping. You get paid for it so that you can continue to do it. Because if you did it for free, you could only do it until you run out of resources. So it's a commercial act of helping. All right. What's the purpose of selling? Purpose of selling is to cause ownership. What's the purpose of marketing? To cause awareness of your existence and interest in your offer. So you do marketing to get people to realize you exist and to say, that's interesting. How does it work? Or I wonder if it would work for me. And then selling is when you help that person make the decision and commitment to own. So purpose of selling is to make life better for other people and to do so profitably so you can keep on doing it. So that's how I differentiate it. Traditional selling is, well, it's just basically causing people to buy. And in the earliest sales training that I received long ago, it was all about making people buy. It wasn't helping people. It was forcing them to relinquish their money so we could give them a product and leave before the product stopped working.
That's a very different ethical framework behind that approach, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't matter if the person was good or not. I remember I sold for a very short season at a car dealership. And I say a very short season. There's nothing wrong with selling at a car dealership. That's wonderful. But the way they were selling made me ashamed of doing it. So I never told my family and friends that I was selling cars, and I didn't get the natural sales one would get out of their own immediate circle.
Right.
So month number 1, I was third from the last in sales, and they fired 2 people. Month number 2, Lester Campbell, the sales manager, called me in. He said, Jim, terminations are never pleasant. I said, what? You're firing me? He said, well, yeah, we always fire whoever's last in sales. I said, well, why not teach me how to sell better? Nah, that's not how we work.
Wow.
I mean, that is so expensive for the dealership. Constantly recruiting, constantly, going through the whole process of orientation again, and then risking, because basically it was fog up a glass and you've just qualified. That was our sales test, right? You're alive.
Yeah.
So give it a shot. And if you don't make sales, you're gone. No. The purpose of business is to make life better. It's the way a society makes life better for people. You're good at one thing, I'm good at another. We do that for each other in exchange, either money or barter or something, and society grows. Well, so business exists so that people can solve problems. If everybody needs a new roof, you and I should go into the roofing business. Somebody will, right? So that's how society helps people. Well, then if the purpose of business is to make life better for people, the purpose of selling is to find out who you can help and to go get them to make the commitment to buy from you. And the process of selling begins with not cold calling, because that in itself creates an ongoing problem. New calling. Okay. What's new calling? It's calling on someone you don't know for the first time and they didn't expect to hear from you. Oh, that's cold calling. No, it doesn't have to be. It's just new calling. And you say, yeah, words. Excuse me, what are we talking about today? The language of selling. Words have meaning and words affect us. If I say I've got to go make cold calls, well, first off, I've implied it's an obligation, not a joy. It's something I have to do. I've got to go make cold calls. How do you make cold calls? Well, coldly, of course. Well, no, you should make them warmly, but they're cold calls. Hello? Shouldn't we use logic and somewhere in this process? What is the call? It's a sales call. Okay, on who? On a stranger. So it's the first time you've ever called on that stranger? Yeah. So that's a new call. Yeah. Is there a reason for it to be cold? Not that I can think of. Okay. So just make it a new call. And don't try to trivialize it or make it juvenile by saying, well, they're going to be warm calls. Ooh,
right.
All nice and warm calls. It's a new call.
Words have an impact, but they're not magic, call. Right?
Yeah. Purpose of a new call is to find out whether this person's a prospect for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that out? You can help them. They can pay for it. That's how you determine it. Mm-hmm. And so in that call, it's the first part of it's an introduction.
Okay.
Here's what I need to know, and here's what you need to know to see if it's worth talking to me. And then you get from that to the next level, and then you're assessing their needs. So, you connect with the person, gain a little bit of trust, start asking intelligent questions to determine their needs, assuming they have the needs that justify continuing. Mm-hmm. Then you start solving their problem. And when you show them that you can truly solve their problem, then you get their commitment to buy. You don't close anything. You confirm a purchase, and then you assure that they're satisfied, and then go on about serving the account.
I really like that. I think that the idea of actually putting some tactical meat behind this idea that words have an impact, not just on the listener, but also the speaker, him or herself. What does that look like? If I'm calling it a cold call, that is going to change my attitude. So I think that there's a bit of a hang up with some of the younger folks in our audience, perhaps, that, well, is that honest or dishonest? Yeah. Well, no, you're making a decision to frame it in a way that is productive. It is absolutely the truth, because you're determining it ahead of time what it's going to be. So it's no different than calling it a going away party versus a birthday party. You decide what kind of party it's going to be. So I really like what you said. I also like what you said about the fact that business is built to serve. I heard a rabbi one time say that every dollar of profit you earn is a thank you note that you've served someone well. And we often forget that it really is about service.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Good. Yeah, and you can tell who's helping the most people by who's earning the most income. I mean, there are exceptions, but there are exceptions. They're not common. Most people that are wealthy have helped a lot of other people.
Yeah, this is not a popular thing to say right now. And, and we're not getting into macroeconomics. There's certainly big corporations that may, push their weight around in ways that aren't great. We're not talking about that. Yeah. We're talking about individual, men and women who've made a principled decision to create something that can serve other humans. And generally speaking, the wealthier have done an awful lot of helping. I like that. I think that's definitely been true.
And it's
when it comes to relationship building,
it's earned.
Yeah,
They've earned.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
That's it. So the idea of building a relationship and kind of having your contacts become assets, as you said at the beginning, the format in which we can do that has obviously dramatically changed, right? We're living in a very different world from when I got into business, from when you got into business, and it's all so been virtualized, and the rate of change has only accelerated. So could you give us some hands and feet on that as well? How would you translate this approach into the digital space where so many of us work every day?
Yeah. Well, first off, the stages in a sales cycle are the same, whether it's digital or live, in person, face-to-face. The stages, I call them the 8 competencies of the sales process. And if you think about it, the stages in a sales cycle and the skills that are necessary for each one are quite obvious, because no matter what you sell, the first stage is always preparation. Figuring out who you're going to call on, when you're going to call, what you're going to need, what do you need to know, what do you need to bring with you or have available for you, the preparation, self-preparation and sales preparation. And those are separate, because one of them has to do with your attitude and things like that, and the knowledge in your forefront of your brain as opposed to back in storage, those sort of things. And then the second stage of selling after preparation is targeting the right people, the ones you can help, the ones who can pay for your help. And so you target the right people at the right time in the right way, because different strategies, some need to be contacted online, some by phone, some by snail mail, some through referrals, some, other credentials. Okay, so targeting the right people at the right time. That's step 2. Well, the skills for preparation and the skills for targeting are a little different. Similar, overlap, but a little different, because targeting has more to do with research and a whole bunch of other things like that.
Sure.
Whereas preparation doesn't necessarily. So in targeting, it's targeting the right people and the right organizations. And then you go to the next stage, once you've figured out who, is to connect. And in connecting, there's also 2 parts of it. The purpose of connecting is to gain trust. But you gain trust with the head, through logic, through credentials, through proof, and with the heart, through personality, through communication style, through all kinds of things like that. So you've got to have their emotional trust so that they value you as an individual and believe that you care about them, and their intellectual trust in that they are willing to give you the benefit of the doubt and pay attention as you explain why this is such a good purchase decision for them. So now we've gone through preparation, targeting the right people, connecting with the people. So we have some trust. Okay. Next, assess their needs, but also assess their wants, because what they need and want might be different, may be aligned, but may not. So I want to assess what you need and what you want. And then my next step after that is to solve your problem, or show you that I can solve your problem. And the 2 sides of that one are to technically, literally solve the problem, show you, this is my product or service, and this is what it'll do for you. And it's a good buy because. And the other side of that is involving you in the dialogue. So if it's all monologue, if it's all just a pitch from me, then it's the Jim Cathcart show. And that better be a pretty compelling show if I want you to buy.
Right.
But if I involve you and it becomes a dialogue, we're partners in problem solving. By the way, these are keywords too. Partners in problem solving. That's the way to look at selling. Right. Then you're helping me create your solution. Woohoo. And people tend to support what they help create. Right. So you feel invested emotionally already. And now we're at the next stage. You see that I can help you. You trust me somewhat. You get it that I was prepared and I'm qualified. All right. So what's the next stage in selling? People say, closing the sale. Why do you want to close anything? Well, that's what they call it. What they call what? When you make them buy. When you what? Make them buy? Okay, when you get them to buy. That's coercion too. How about just confirming the purchase? Confirming the sale? Well, what's the difference? Big difference. If you have collaborated with me in determining whether this is the right solution for you, then the next stage is for me to make it easy for you to say yes, and then confirm the fact that you did. So what about objections? Well, first off, if they object to buying, it's already gone too far. Well, no, there are ways to handle excuse me. Why call it an objection? Because if they say, I object, you're already adversaries. Now, is everyone in every instance concerned about the price? Of course they are. Do they object to the price? Not necessarily. So why not address it while it's only a concern? Everyone's concerned about whether they can trust you and your company and your product or your service. Everyone's concerned about whether the price is reasonable and whether they can afford it. Everyone's concerned about whether you'll follow through and your delivery will fulfill the hopes that they have. Why not address all that while they're just concerns? Make it part of your sales dialogue so that the next stage is just making it easy to say yes. And then you confirm the sale. Now you don't have to close anything. For that matter, you sure don't want to close the relationship. You want to begin it at that point. That's when it's official. Now we got a partnership, right? Now we got a
starting
game
something
going. Yeah, you're expecting to get something. I'm expecting to give something. So that's certainly not closed. And the next thing, you don't want your mind closed or their mind closed. You don't want to say the case is closed and you walk away, because there's follow through to be done. So forget closing, confirming. It's easy. And it doesn't require a major new language learning. You just use language that's already there, the most obvious logical language. So you've confirmed the sale. Now what do? Assure that they're satisfied. And that two parts of that. By the way, there were also two parts of confirming that they agree this is the right solution, they can afford it.
Okay.
And then confirming that they actually buy. Because without the signature, the check, or the authorization, or the code, or whatever you need, it's not official. So now you're assuring they're satisfied. One is assure that they're satisfied right now by showing them, this is how this thing's going to work. This is who you'll talk to next. These are the stages. This is the screenshot of what it's going to look like. This is da-da-da-da-da, and you walk them through it. So that's assuring that they're satisfied now. And you want to also assure that they're satisfied ongoing through your follow-through, so that you end up with a loyal customer who will refer other people to you or come back again, right? So assuring immediate satisfaction and ongoing satisfaction. And then one last stage in selling, managing your accounts and managing yourself as a salesperson. Preparation, targeting the right people, connecting with the people, assessing their needs, solving their problem, confirming the sale, assuring that they're satisfied, managing sales.
That's good stuff. I love that. And definitely referring to it as addressing concerns as opposed to overcoming objections changes the energy entirely. Just that language alone identifies that this isn't a transactional kind of relationship. It is more one of friendship, problem solving. I really like that. And the thing about asking the key questions to really get a little deeper, and this is live, so I'm getting some questions, by the way. So I have one from Levi on here that he wants to know, when you're asking questions like that, there's the need versus the want. What would be your input on the difference between the two, how to ask your questions, and and what difference does that make as the sales conversation unfolds?
Well, let's take a particular type of product. So if you can recommend an example that we use, I'll be happy to use that example.
So if you're involved in a conversation where you're talking about, say, their business has a need for better data tracking or whatever your SaaS solution is about, where would want come in that conversation when it comes to that target?
Better data tracking?
Yeah, just as a random example, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a SaaS solution, and you're solving a business problem.
Right. What you need in that instance is to meet certain technical criteria. It's got to have this, and this, and otherwise it's just not going to fit our plan. So if you're using like Salesforce.com or something like that, and what they've got is incompatible with Salesforce.com, they're toast. This conversation, with them is over. Right. So there needs, things that must be provided. But then you want one that you have more control over. You want one that has occasional guest experts that are online, and you can go to that website and pipe that into your training room and talk with your people about it. Or you can send it out to the emails or on a text to the people in the field, and they can get that new insight. And you also want to feel like it's coming through you, even if it's not. You want it. Your want may be, I'm the guy, or I'm the gal, I'm the person in charge of this department. I don't want to be left out of this loop and have everything delegated to a software. So do this in such a way that I still feel important. Well, those are wants. Sure. So it may be some of your wants can't be addressed yet. Nothing can't forever, but can't yet with what I know and what we've discovered so far. But maybe I can give a workaround, or I can get to that further down the line. So it's like the person says, well, I need to buy a car, and I want I want a Jaguar 2-seater sports car convertible. Great. What's the purpose of the car? Deliveries. Oops. How about we get you a convertible SUV? Wow, they make those? I don't know, but let's look. right? So they'll find you something sporty to address your wants, but give you what you need, something with the carrying capacity, you can use it for deliveries.
That makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to having these things lined up in order, as you're talking about, how far apart is this framework you've just been laying out for us today, Jim, and the framework that you encounter in companies that you're working with?
You mean the 8 competencies, the 8 stages?
Yeah.
Well, and the reason for the competencies is each stage in the sales cycle has a set of skills unique to it. Like assessing needs has a set of skills around it. Listening and empathy and probing and that sort of thing. And solving problems has a set of skills based in presentation and dialogue and creativity and illustration and demonstration and all that. Confirming the sale has to do with clarifying, reminding, summarizing, reassuring, highlighting, guiding, that kind of thing. Assuring satisfaction has to do with kind of the nurturing skills in business for taking care of an account and guiding a new owner into the use of something that's unfamiliar and not experiencing operator error as an ongoing theme, which would cause buyer's remorse, and then they'd want to unwind the deal and get out of the sale. So going back to objections, people say, well, I've been taught how to handle objections. There's the sharp angle close, and the hat and hand close, and the lowest common denominator, reduce it to the ridiculous close. And then there's the boomerang, that's the very reason you should go ahead and buy from me. And what about those things? Well, all of those are perfectly useful discussion structures for presenting a response. But if you do them in a memorized, canned routine, it's going to come across as manipulation. So if someone says to me, Jim, that's a lot more money than we're used to paying for this sort of thing, I could say, feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel, Jonathan. A lot of my prospects feel the same way. But what they've found is that when you consider this, this, and this, and this, the net cost of that is not nearly what it appears to be. In fact, it's a savings. Oh, so I've used that structure, but not in I understand what you feel. Others have felt that way too, and all my robotic response comes back and kills the trust instead of building it. So that rehearsal with your colleagues in selling is a really, really valuable thing. Learn to get into natural feeling dialogues with other people who are insiders to you and get comfortable talking about these things in a way that's natural instead of rigid. So someone says, well, we don't have this and our competitors do. That's the very reason you should buy this today.
Yeah. I love it.
What? Yeah. Or none of our competitors have this. Why should we be the first? Because you told me earlier you want to be the top dog in the marketplace. That means you've got to innovate. This is a great way to do it and not waste money. Oh,
I love it. This has been such a great conversation on the power of language, Jim. The time has already flown by. I wish we could keep going. If you got a couple more seconds, you could indulge. We do have there's a couple more questions that I think might be worth just tossing your way. The audience would be interested. So one is, in fact, I'll just ask you two at once, and you can kind of address them as you like. And it comes from Andrew Ellenberg. He's a thought leader out there listening in today as well. And he asks, is the phone making a comeback now that people are getting burned out on Zoom? And he also wonders how important humor is in that whole relationship building piece, and maybe even addressing a difficult client or a prospect in conversation. What are your thoughts there, Jim?
The humor one is a quick and easy one. Humor is, if you look back at the origins of the word, it has to do with the elements in your body, blood, bile, phlegm, and it's just gross if you go back all the way to Hippocrates and looking at the humors and so forth. They thought that's what caused personality to evolve as it does, that it was based on the predominance of one of these humors inside one's body. Not true. Anyway, the humor in selling comes from the nature of the relationship. When there's no trust, humor has to be structured like comedy in a nightclub. But even then, the comedian has to gain the trust of the audience. And a lot of times, the laugh they get comes from a betrayal of the trust. They're going along, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then all of a sudden they reverse directions and they do something so out of character, you're shocked and you laugh. Well, it doesn't mean you want to give them money, but you got to laugh. Well, humor in selling needs to be a playful attitude, maybe. I talk about myself as a speaker when I'm considering marketing me, the product. I say a playful presenter with a serious message, because I use lots of stories and lots of playfulness with the audience. And like I might walk out on stage and say, how many of you believe that selling is essential to society? I'm making this up. And I put my hand up. Let me see a show of hands. And let's say I get like 15 hands out of 100 people. And I say, okay, how many of you, just checking, wouldn't have raised your hands no matter what that question had been? Could I see your hands? And all the hands go up. And that gets a laugh. So I'm being playful with them, right? And then I go on and I make my point, and I'm into my speech. So that's the way I see using humor in sales, is just being willing to be playful and have some fun. Mm-hmm. Always be in good taste. Always, always, always. Even if you could get a belly laugh with a dirty joke or something slimy that you do, don't do it, because it causes them to respect you less.
That makes sense.
Laughter and respect aren't hand in hand.
Yeah.
Right? So retain your dignity and show them the same courtesy.
Yeah.
The second thing is, what about technology? I mean, phone and Zoom calls and email communication and all the social media, all the various ways of communicating today. Well, every person has a PMOC. This is something I came up with. Preferred mode of communication. I have a colleague, Dr. Tony Alessandra, who is virtually addicted to the telephone, loves the telephone, has always, even in the days of payphones, was on the phone every day as often as he could get on the phone. Just loves it. The phone to me is useful. It's a utility. I'm okay with that, but if it's a longer conversation, I'd much rather have a Zoom or an in-person, or if it's something that requires a lot of thought, I'd rather do it through email or digital communication so that I have time to think and check some of my files and maybe attach a document. So if you want to reach my colleague John, send him an email. You can send him a text, but he's not going to look at it today. You could call him, he might not answer, but send him an email and he's tuned into that all day long. I have a grandson. If I send him an email, it may be next August before he sees the email. But if I text him, he responds immediately. So, and my son, because of his work, is only available certain hours and times during the day. And if I post something on Facebook, which reaches a lot of my friends, and I'm really, really active on Facebook because I can post so much, videos and photos and everything else. But there's so many people that aren't even on Facebook. My grandson was involved in one of my Going Pro coaching series recently, and my grandson's 21. And I had him come on as a guest. And I said, by the way, all of the links and everything you need are on the group page on Facebook. It's Going Pro Mentor on Facebook. He said, I'm not on Facebook. I said, well, I'm really on it, so get on it for this purpose. He says, okay. He said, but you got to friend me. I'm his only friend on Facebook because I'm the only reason he's on it. Otherwise, he's using all, the Snapchat or whatever the heck the latest thing is with his group and TikTok and everything else. So preferred mode of communication is a big deal. And just recognize that the fewer touches that are possible with the person, the fewer senses are involved, and the weaker the bond of trust is going to be. If it's only digital, then you better have some illustrations and images or something, or a video clip, because otherwise it's just going to be like reading a book, right? If it's telephone, you've got the vocal inflections, the pauses, the timing. And by the way, when you think of the language of anything, specifically selling, think of silence as a word. There are really, 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 really long words, and there are short words. And the same thing's true for silences. If I just pause, that's not much. But if I pause, that says a whole lot, and the words don't change at all. So that's a factor, when you're talking on the phone or doing a Zoom call or something. So when you involve the eyes, when you involve the ears, when you involve the feelings, that can be affected through sound or volume or whatever, then you've got a lot more at your disposal. And also when you're doing text only in an email or a text message, the choice of font, the choice of type style, and, like all caps or mixture or whatever, and whether it's sans serif or just straight up letters, whether you use colors, all of that needs to be considered. I've got a colleague I communicate with all the time. I send her messages in 14-point type in email, in Helvetica 14-point type, which is straight up easy to read, and 14 is pretty good for even older people's eyes. She responds in 9-point type Courier. And I have to zoom to be able to read the message. But that's her default setting. So look at what your default settings are. If you're responding to someone's email and theirs really easy to read, is yours? Send one to yourself in another device so that you can see how it comes across. And signature lines and quotes and things. Well, here's a way to think about an email or a text. Who it comes from. Like if it comes from Jim@Cathcart.com. Okay, I'm pretty clear who that's from, right? But if it comes from Resume the Boom, which is my music, my show that my wife and I do with guitar and singing, we do baby boom music, and we call ourselves Resume the Boom. If it comes to you from Resume the Boom, it had better be about music. Otherwise, you're going to say, "Who the heck is this? I'm not sure. I'm going to open this." Right. So, item one is your initial appearance is the name that you're sending under. Item two is the eye contact and the grip of your hand for a handshake in an email or a text is the subject line. So get to the point. Make the subject line brief and meaningful so that they want to see the message. And then the message is whether it's a firm handshake or a dead fish, or whatever, or no handshake, whether there's glancing eye contact or sustained. And by the way, look at your message on eye content. How often are you saying I? I'm so glad to get your message, Jonathan. I'm looking forward to talking to you today because I'm going to talk about, and I'm going me. Yeah. Right? And that's not drawing you in.
Right.
There you go.
A lot of additional great gold nuggets there, Jim. I really thank you for that. And the time has completely breezed by. I want to keep talking to you offline here in just a minute, my friend Jim. But before we do that, I'm going to let our audience part ways, but not before we have you share with them the very best way they can contact you directly if they would like to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, first off, I'm the easiest person on earth to find because you just use my name, Jim Cathcart. And a Google search will yield like 300,000 possible links. So if you want me, just use the name straight up. Like on Instagram, it's Jim Cathcart, although I've been hacked recently on Instagram. So be careful when looking at any messages that ask you to do something. On LinkedIn, Cathcart Institute or Jim Cathcart. Facebook, Jim Cathcart. YouTube, Jim Cathcart. Lots of videos you can watch. My website, Cathcart or Jim Cathcart. Either one will get you there. And there are free videos on there. And if you want to know about my Going Pro mentor program, then just do cathcart.com/Going Pro. So lots of ways. If you do an Amazon search, it's going to come up with some of my 23 books or some of my audio or video recordings. Man, I'm out there, and I'm eager to hear from you because I do pay attention and I do respond back. So, just stay tuned to this broadcast. And, any time I can be a continuing resource here, I'm happy to pop back in and answer your questions or add value where I can.
We will take you up on that, Jim. Thanks again for being with here, and thanks to our audience for jumping on with us. That closes out this episode of Evolve Sales Live. Thanks again, everyone. Have a fantastic rest of your evening.